Going live. So we are live. Thank you for being here with us tonight for this episode of Simple Steps to Prosperity. And tonight I have my very special guest, Dr. Catherine Barnes. Hi, Kathy.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, everything is fine over here. And how are you?
I am well, thank you. Thanks for asking.
So just a very short introduction for our audience. I'll tell you just a little bit about Catherine because she has a very, very rich CV, a lot of experience, a lot of expertise. So I won't be able to say everything about you, Kathy, but just to, let our audience know a little bit about who you are and what you do. So Catherine is President and CEO of Sudden Impact Solutions, and she's an international published author, certified diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, and personal, professional, and relationship coach. She conducts professional and personal development workshops and seminars in the United States and abroad, and she also provides individual and group coaching across the country. The topics of her workshops are really many, varied. I will just mention a few of them: women's issues and diversity, women as leaders, self-esteem strategies, the superwomen syndrome, emotional wellness for women, the power of positive attitude, and the list goes on. She's a member of the Professional Woman Network, PWN, and she's also a member of the board of directors of this publishing firm and association. And she's also a certified professional coach, trainer, speaker, and consultant. She has over 23 years of experience in the field of business, education, professionalism, women and teen issues, relationships and leadership. She's worked in the public school system as well as in the corporate and faith-based sector. She's gained an invaluable real-world insight and knowledge that has allowed her to empower and inspire change as a consultant in school, businesses, churches, non-profit organizations, and various other civic, social, and service organizations. So she's an experienced mentor, teacher, principal, business owner, community engagement specialist, and among her many accomplishments, as I said, she's really recently been appointed a member of the board of directors of PWN. She has received the honor of the Schultz Center for Professional Development, Teaching and Learning, and she's written many books. So, as I said, a very, very wide and rich experience. So, Kathy, thank you for being with me, with my audience tonight. I'm very honored to be able to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so as I said, you are an entrepreneur and you are running a successful business. What can you describe as the biggest challenge that you had to face?
Wow, the biggest challenge I would have to say was probably navigating the system, understanding what needed to be done, what kind of, all of the legalities of business, understanding that it's not something that you can just start, that you have to understand how to market yourself, that you have to understand about imaging, you have to understand a lot about branding, you have to spend some time understanding your market, narrowing your focus. It's really important to understand who you're talking to and what you can provide to them as far as a service. So that's probably been the biggest challenge. You always want to jump out and say, I can serve everybody because everyone needs my product and this is just great. But the hardest thing for me was trying to narrow down what, out of all those things that we've talked about, those things that you've listed, what things can I actually pull together that would serve people or that would give me the best opportunity to make a difference.
And how did you overcome this challenge?
Really by just having a lot of asking myself a lot of questions. It's important to understand, again, who you're serving and what service that you are able to offer them. And I have a process that I go through essentially, and it starts, that's a first part of the process is in that is to determine what your purpose is. You have to know why you're doing it and for what. What's the purpose? What's your goal? And for who? Who are you doing it for? What's the purpose? What's really driving you? And once I determine that my sole purpose was to make a difference and to be able to empower and encourage and to make sure that I was able to bridge the gap for people who at some point thought that they potentially want to be a brain surgeon, however they don't like science. So being able to understand what those gaps are between where you are today and where you want to go. And once I realized that that was actually my purpose and my focus, then I had to start doing my work around how to overcome that and how to make sure that that was strong enough for me to then market.
Kathy, you empower women with your programs and with your services. What are the major obstacles, both internal and external, that a woman has to face when she's starting a new business or career? And when this happens, when the woman is already in her more mature years?
Mm-hmm. Probably internally is fear. I think that's probably the biggest thing, and we have to understand that fear can be debilitating if you allow it to be. What I have to do is I found a way to substitute fear with faith, and that's how I have to walk, and that's how I have to determine where I'm going next. I can't get stuck in the fear part of the work because there's always going to be this big bad wolf. There's always the opportunities of what if it doesn't work, what if somebody doesn't agree, what if someone doesn't like it. So probably the biggest challenge as it relates to starting off is being able to overcome that fear, that internal thing that just kind of makes you afraid to try. And it's often something that people consider to be just a little thing, but it really can be debilitating. Externally, I think it's people, and people are really your biggest obstacle. You have to get to a place where you are comfortable with being, where you're so passionate about your mission that what other people think about it, or whether they find it relevant, or whether you have in your circle those people who are not necessarily supportive, you have to find enough in you, and you have to be so passionate about it that you're able to overcome those people and those things. So internally, I would say it was probably fear. Fear is huge, and externally, probably people, and again, systems, and making sure that you're clear on what you're trying to do.
We mentioned, a woman who's starting a new business or a new career, and and this world situation where the economic crisis is something that is felt practically all over the world. There are many people, especially women, who maybe they lost their job, or they have never worked before, and they are now in a situation where it is necessary for them to either look for a job or build their own business. So what would you suggest to a woman, but to anybody who wants to start up his or her own business? What are the steps they have to go through in order to build it, and possibly successfully?
Well, what my suggestion would be is that you definitely, again, go back to your purpose. Find out what it is that you're passionate about, that you feel like you can actually turn that into income. My sister is a perfect example. She is absolutely fabulous with making things. I'm not that creative person. She's the creative one when it comes to making things. So my sister, she decided that novelties that she would make, she started to make one-of-a-kind novelties. And because that was something that she enjoyed doing, she found that other people actually would pay for that service. They also wanted one-of-a-kind novelties. So then we had to take her to the process of understanding her value, her worth, what the value of her product is, and then who her audience is. And that's pretty much what would have to happen with anyone that's wanting to start a business. My suggestion would be first that you understand, again, what your purpose is. What is it that you're trying to do and why? And then you need to figure out, you need to plan it. And that's a huge part of this process. There has to be a plan in place. A lot of times we jump out and just say, okay, I'm going to start a business and I want to go and I'm going to start doing this and doing that. And you don't take the time to go back and say, prepare yourself financially, because starting a business is hard. Starting a business and getting the courage to jump out and do the business is hard. So you have to have that socio-emotional side covered, where that you feel like you're actually in a place where you're comfortable enough to do it and you're comfortable enough in yourself to take the risk. But honestly, you have to have some financial things in place so that you feel like you, again, you can take a minute to step back and say, I'm going to go out, I'm going to start this business, and I know for the first week, month, year, whatever, however long it takes to get you up and off the road, on the road, that you may or may not have the same kind of income. So you have to make sure that your structure's in place so that you are actually able to withstand that. And that's tough. That's tough. The other thing is you have to start really in that plan. You have to really start preparing yourself for the time that it's actually going to take to get it done. You can't jump out and just start doing something tomorrow and because you had a dream about it last night. It's just not going to work. So you have to be very careful that you outline and you have a realistic timeline and set realistic goals, because if they're not realistic, then you'll become discouraged when you don't make them or when you don't reach them. And then you have to figure out how you're going to actually do this thing. What is it that you have to do? How are you going to do it? And how are you going to deliver this? And to who are you delivering it to? Who wants this product? What service do you have? And how do you know they want it? So that, again, goes back into researching it and preparing it and making sure that you have the right systems in place so that you're able to deliver the correct product to the correct audience so that you can be lucrative.
Talking about the correct audience, what would you suggest to people, who, they try to figure out who their potential customers are? How can they identify the ideal customers?
Actually, there are a lot of ways to do that. In my program, I take actually all of my clients that I work with that are trying to start businesses. I walk them through a process that helps them to identify their target audience. But in short, it's essentially being able to figure out who needs your service. You have to figure out what the problem is, and then how can you solve it. And once you decide who has that problem, and you can give them a solution, now you have your audience. And it's very easy, again, for us to talk about, oh, I make bandanas and everybody wants bandanas. Well, no, everyone doesn't want bandanas. So you have to understand that sometimes you end up spending your money and your energy marketing to the wrong people or communicating to the wrong people what your product or your idea is. So in order to do that, you have to look at who's currently there now. Do some things, and again, this is the process that I actually take people through in great detail. But one of the things that I suggest to groups is go to Facebook or go to some of the blogs and look to see who's there, who's doing things, or who's talking about that particular thing that you're interested in. And that those people that are having comments about it and are interested, that may be where you want to start jumping in, because that's your audience. Those are people that you know are interested. And then I would try to launch some things differently. Make sure that you are communicating with different people outside your immediate circle, because again, that immediate circle may be comfortable, but that may not be the group that's going to continuously buy your product, or those won't be your return customers. Those are generally your friends and people that are going to be, or family, and they're going to be loving and caring, but they may or may not always want to buy your product. So you have to make sure you're able to figure out who's going to buy your product, where they are, and then go to them.
Yeah, and speak to their problems, and and see how you can solve these problems, and this will make the difference and help you stand out, differentiate yourself from your competition. So now we have identified the audience, we know what we are offering to them, we have a product or service that is the solution to the problem that we are addressing. Now, the marketing and promotion part comes into play, and this is one of the biggest challenges that I have to deal with my customers, and I have to help them go through this challenge. And I believe, for example, that personal branding is very, very important today, and it is also a way to get to know yourself better, to be more focused in what you do, and to identify more clearly who your target audience is. But this requires, that you work on your personal brand and that you build also a social media presence. What do you do, Kathy, for your personal brand and for your social media presence?
Well, personal branding is huge. What has to happen is you can see, whenever you see me, or pretty much, I'm going to have something that represents my company. And it doesn't matter where I am or what's happening, I'm talking about or showing that company. Personal branding is about what that image is, what comes to mind when someone hears your name, what comes to mind when someone hears your company. And you're always, always working on your brand. And that's the one thing that I have to communicate to people, because once something is associated with you, it's associated with you. So you can't dismiss it, and you can't say, well, no, this is my brand, but this is who I am. You really, really have to hone in on who you're going to be all the time, because that's exactly what your brand's attached to. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend she owns a company called Cupcake 50. And with Cupcake 50, she has this, it's a look that comes across with her cupcakes. Her cupcakes are high-end cupcakes, and they are a large variety. But what she does is every time she sells them, you can spot her Cupcake 50 cupcake by a couple things. Her logo is consistent, her colors are consistent, her packaging is consistent, and her message is consistent. And when you align those things, every time someone sees that, they can automatically go to that place, and you want it to automatically mean something. Her cupcakes, whenever you see that little container, you know that it's not a cheap container, you know that it's going to be high-end, you know that it's going to be delicious, you know that it's going to be gourmet. That's what comes along with that particular brand. So when you start to look at how you're going to brand yourself, you can't take shortcuts. You have to make sure that whatever it is that you're going to put out front as your product is going to be your product. And whatever is going to be your look is going to be your look. And it goes everywhere. It goes absolutely everywhere that you go. So you can't separate yourself from your brand, which is something that gets to be a little touchy sometimes. And I used to share that with even in the educational arena. I'm a principal. I was a principal everywhere that I went. So I couldn't get to a place and not be a principal anymore, because regardless, when I came back to school that next Monday, whatever I did on Saturday and Sunday was still attached to the principal. It wasn't attached to some random person. So that's really big, and just understanding that you carry your brand with you, and your brand carries you, and that's a huge, huge connection that you have to make. Your brand carries you. You carry your brand. So those things have to match all the time. But in terms of social media and utilizing it, I will tell you that social media is probably the best place at this time to get your name out, get your information out, as long as again you are being consistent in your message, consistent in what your image is, and making sure that you are somehow placing yourself on a cycle of movement. Again, my program, one of the programs that I work with some of the people that I'm coaching now, business coaching, we go through a layering process where essentially you, on one day of the week, you send out something that deals with, depends on the business. You'll send out one day, you send out something that may be about trees. Something may be something that you noticed in the community, but always with your logo attached. And then maybe the third day you'll put something out that actually has to do with a service that you're offering. And then you'll come back and put something else in the middle, maybe something funny or something uplifting or whatever. And then you come right back again with the next thing, which goes back to what your service or what it is that you're offering. But the key to that is not bombarding people with buy this all the time. You have to be able to somehow, or what works for me is integrating things that show them that you're human, that you're personable, but that you also have a product to sell that they can connect to and that will address the problems that they're facing.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a very clear, precise, definition of brand and how to, present your brand on social media. Today, I mean, you have to also decide very precisely on which social media, on which social networks you have to be present, because not every social network is good for everybody.
Right,
Correct.
right, right. And you have to be very careful again with your social networking that you are, again, making sure that, I'll go back to what I just said, your brand is your brand. It goes with you. So if you are going to post something that is inappropriate or does not align with the message that you're sending, that now is limiting or is tainting your brand. So you have to be careful to connect to the right networks. And I'm glad you used that word, not just social media networks, but let's, if I can, talk about networking a little bit. What I like to say that networking is a new work. It's not network. It's not traditional networking. And networking now has to be a process that is ingrained in your work. It's what you do. You have to be able to make connections. And you have to figure out where those people are that you need to know. And you need to figure out where the people are that you don't need to know, to be quite honest. You need to move away from people that are not going to be supportive of your vision and your mission. But you need to make sure that you're operating in circles that, one, appreciate your service, can support your service, need your service, or know people that need your service. And we spend a lot of time in circles or in situations where we don't do that. We associate with the same group of people who have very similar interests, but we don't grow. And it's often uncomfortable because you have to go out and you have to meet people and you have to have conversation. You have to be personable. You have to do all of these things. Yes, that's a part of your work. That's what happens when you are building your own and you're trying to develop your own business. You are responsible for doing that. So it's important that you associate yourself in the right network. Some of the things that I do personally is I make sure that I go places where I know people are that need what I have. That's the first thing. The other thing is I use every opportunity to not just promote myself, but to promote other people that I know that are doing other things that help. And that's a huge part of this too. You have to always, and I'll talk about perseverance in just a bit, but you always have to have the heart to pay it forward. Because again, there are a lot of people that are out there who can't help you and won't, and you have to be okay with that. There are a lot of people out there who can't help you and wish they could, and then there's that group of people out there who can and will, and you have to find out where those people are by, again, seeking them out. It doesn't fall into your lap, and this isn't hard. This isn't easy work. This is hard. You have to literally get up and go find. You have to tap people. You have to talk to people, and you have to have a personality when you do it, so that they understand that it's not a give to me, but that it's always a with them in there. It's always what's in it for me and what's in it for them. It has to be a win-win.
Yeah. You were saying, you said that sometimes, networking and putting yourself out there is uncomfortable. It's true. I find this very common with women and less common with men. When I think of my clients, what I notice is that men tend to be more aware of their personal brand. And this is something that is less clear with women. Do you experience the same kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. And it is less clear because women have a lot more titles and targets put on them. Remember, men can get away with being men, and you may add on father, or you may add on a few other things here or there, but they can get away with just being men, and that generally carries them enough. It gives them enough weight to be able to move into whatever that next phase is. Women, we have to spend a little more time on that because what we're doing is we have to be mom, cook, all these other things that kind of come into it, and then you are in now your brand. And what we have to do is we have to reverse that without losing the focus on family and without being able to maintain balance. But it's a key. The key to that is, of course, maintaining balance, and you have to figure out what that means to you, what that means in your particular life and in your way of work. But the key is to make sure that you are always aware of your brand and aware of what it is that you have to do to make sure that that's communicated, even in those other arenas. And you're right, it's easier for men to do it. Men do it. They're very much aware of what their brand is. It's like the football player. He can be be 100 years old, but he's always, remember, I played football, I'm a football player, or whatever. And women,
Yeah.
it's hard for us to determine which of these mini hats that we have to wear, which of these things do we pull out first. So it is very different. It's very, it's a unique problem to have, but it's a good one because it allows you to constantly redefine and hone in on what your perfect skills are and what your personal skills are and where you are, where your passion is, and be able to pull those things to the forefront. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely a different process for women than it is for men.
Yeah, and always talking about the fact that sometimes, you may feel uncomfortable when you are in networking events and you are presenting yourself as a brand. Just remember that a brand is a brand if it is visible. If nobody knows about the brand, there's no brand. Correct?
And that is correct. That is correct. There
Yeah.
is, if no one has it, if no one sees you, then then it's not. There's no brand. There's no brand. You have to be able to be seen. People have to know what it is, and it is uncomfortable again too. But it goes back to again those traditional things that we're accustomed to. Women are basically background people. Traditionally, we've been in a place where it was negative to be positive or to speak up for yourself, or negative to be upfront, or negative to be presenting or proud of anything. You were a little bit presumptuous and over the top, or all kinds of negative tags and titles were attached to you in that space. But what happens now is women are building enough confidence and getting enough things under their belt, enough passion, enough opportunity now, so that it's okay. And there's a huge difference between in that transition, because as you move into that place, we're not asking you to go be aggressive women. We're asking you to be assertive women. We're asking you to make sure that you see your value, you see your worth, and that you hold people accountable for that same thing. And you stand up and you make sure that they understand that you're in that space for a reason, that you have a valuable service, that you offer them something that maybe others can't, or even if others do, they don't do it the same way. Whatever your unique spin is on your process, whatever your unique spin is on your problem or on your product, whatever that is, you bring that to the forefront and stand proud of that. And it's very difficult. It has been traditionally difficult for people to do that. Because again, especially women, because we're accustomed to kind of standing down and not being as confident or allowing our confidence to show. So it is a shift, but it's something that we have to do. And there again, it's a positive place to be. It's not something, again, where you have to be overpowering or rude. As a matter of fact, that kind of rough, nasty aggression is really unattractive, and it's not cute. It's not fun either. But what it is there are other ways that you can do it. It's just, again, being very confident in who you are and being able to speak to that effect, speak to that fact without shame, without regret, without embarrassment, without feeling like you're somewhere where you shouldn't be, because it's okay. It's okay. It's okay for you to be that good.
Yeah. And this, leads me to another question. You mentioned, fear as probably the most difficult internal obstacle a woman has to overcome. And then we were talking about, it is okay to be successful, to be good at what you do. So there is also a lot of fear of success. This is one of the fears that blocks a lot of people. And I think this is quite common with women too. What do you think?
I agree. I think fear of success is something that goes back to what we were just talking about. We have been traditionally or conditioned essentially as women to not 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 be happy about the things that we've accomplished, or to be happy about it, but only in a little bit of time and only in a very small space. And then after that, then you become boastful, and all these other negative things are attached to you. Now you're too prideful. Now you are again aggressive, or now you are full of yourself, air quotes, or any of those other things that you can come up with. And that happens because again, men often don't suffer that same thing. Again, the more they brag, the better they are in their circles, and the better they are, the more women speak up about how good they are, how good their services are, then they get pushed back into the background, and it has a negative connotation. So that again goes back to that whole place of perseverance when you are going through this particular process of building your business and building your brand and becoming who you are as a person and who you are as an entrepreneur. You have to make sure that you are in a place where you can withstand that scrutiny, because it happens and it comes. And that you can't own it. You have to be able to withstand it, but you can't own it. That belongs to the person with the negativity, not you. Not you, definitely not. So when you're dealing with that fear of success, it's generally because you fear what other people will think, what other people will think about you being successful, and how you have to change your lifestyle, and how you have to change your circles, and how you have to make different decisions, and what things you have to include and what things you have to exclude from your life. That becomes very uncomfortable when you're having to say to someone, I'm sorry, I can no longer do these things because it's not appropriate for my business, or it doesn't help my business, or it doesn't build my business, or it diminishes my brand. And when you have to have those conversations, those are a little uncomfortable. So we often are fearful of that. But even another thing that comes to mind now is, as you're talking about, even in being in relationships, if you're in a marriage, or you're in some sort of transition, and you're accustomed to standing in the background, and you start to come up in this place, often you fear losing the relationship, or you fear the insecurity or insecurities of the other person. You feel how that's going to impact your family, or how it's going to impact your household, or how it's going to change things. And my suggestion in that situation, in that space, is to always have a conversation. Talk about it. Talk about it, and make sure that everyone in that whole circle understands the value, how much this is important, how much this means to you. And people that care about you care about what matters to you. So if that's really what you're involved in, and that's where you are, and those are the things that you're trying to do, then you have to walk to a space where you feel comfortable saying, this is important to me, and I really would appreciate your support. And once you start having that open dialogue and open conversation, then it makes things easier. And practice on your friends. Practice on people that you know that you can count on. I have friends that I can go to, and they will say, they're going to go and say all kinds of crazy stuff. My friend Elka does it. Crystal does it. I mean, my friends do it. They do it. They say whatever. Just whatever. And they'll say, like, Kathy, that was dumb. No, don't do that. Or they'll say something like, you know what, that was a good idea. How can we work on that? What happens is they do that. So you have to get to a place. If not, call me, call someone that you can bounce some of these things off of, and so that they can help you kind of get to a place where you can actually walk outside of your house feeling as good as you feel, sitting in your mirror, sitting in your mind, talking about how good you are.
Kathy, prosperity means different things to different people. What does prosperity mean to you?
Wow. Prosperity to me means having a complete balance of mind, body, spirit, and finances. Let me add that in there. And all of those things go together. I think you're in a prosperous place when you can do the things that you want to do without regret. You can do the things for other people without regret or without hesitation. You can make a difference and leave a footprint wherever you go. That's really, in my mind, you've come to a place of prosperity when you are able to take trips. Yes, the financial part of it is great. Take trips, help friends out, do whatever it is that you want to do. Start new businesses, do whatever it is that you want to do from a financial standpoint. But really, prosperity is more about making sure that there's a spiritual alignment, and making sure that you're in a place where you're comfortable with yourself, who you are, and that you can walk into any room and be okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the audience is. It doesn't matter, because you're comfortable enough in yourself that the external things don't matter. So I think when you're rich in your spirit, and you're rich in your mind, and you're rich in your circles, and your life is rich. I think at that point you're prosperous in so many other ways. Once you determine that prosperity isn't linked to money, it's linked to a perfect balance, or some semblance of balance in mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, and so a personal question: what do you do to keep this balance in your life?
Well, I exercise a lot. I have a girlfriend and several friends, and some of them are consistent, some are not, but I do have one that is a consistent person. And we spend every morning, we work out every morning. So we do it, and this didn't just start, I've done it for a while, but what happens is essentially we get us out of the way first. I always start my day with Thanksgiving first, because I'm always very, very thankful for being able to see another day. But I always have to have some sort of spiritual connection, and then I leave my house and I go work out. So I start with making sure that I start with prayer in the morning, I end with prayer at night. So my day is started in intermittently throughout the day. And I know that may or may not be popular with some people, but I'm talking about what works for me. I personally, I have to start my day in that place. I have to start my day in a place of thanksgiving, a place of gratefulness, a place of gratitude, and then I move into working out. And I work out, we get it done first thing in the morning before most people are even up and out of bed. By the time I get back home sometimes, my family's like just getting up. And I've already gone, it's out of the way, and it's over with, but I've done that for myself. So I also spend a lot of time making sure that I am taking the right vitamins, and I've just started that. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a soldier for that. I've been kind of beat over the head with that. My husband has made me start doing that like constantly now. But we do that using the right vitamins. I make sure that I'm eating the right foods for the most part, and that I'm having an opportunity to do things for me medically and physically that I need to do. It's important to keep up with your health. It's important to go to the dentist, make sure you get your checkups and all of those other things. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for the people around you, because they want you here for a while. So make sure that you do those things. And then outside of that, balance, I try to make sure that I have a work time. And whatever amount of time that is that I'm going to go to work, I work during that time. It's my work time. So I may not answer text messages, and I get in trouble for that all the time. I may not answer messages, or I may not answer phone calls during that time, because during that time I've committed that time to work. Because the other time I'm also committed to other things. I have to make sure that I spend time with my family. I have to make sure that I spend time. My daughter's away at college. I have to spend time making sure we talk every day. Or we have some sort of communication, and make sure that those things are still happening. So and I have to find a place for release, and that happens to be exercise for me in the mornings. But also, at some point, I have to make sure that I schedule time for me. I have to schedule it, because if I don't, everything else will take over the day. It has to be a priority for you to schedule time for you. And I'm saying that emphatically because it is me, and I'm just learning how to do it. For years, I didn't. It was just work, 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 work. But what I found is that with health and other things, you have to get to a place where you can find time for you. What I try to do, and what I tell other people to do, if you can afford to do it, schedule 4 times. I do it quarterly, 4 times out of the year, where you take a day and you go away. It's just you. You can do a staycation, go to a hotel in your city. You don't have to go out of town. It doesn't have to be very expensive. But go somewhere and veg out. Go somewhere and give your mind time to breathe. Give yourself time to regroup. Give yourself time to kind of plan out some things and hash out the next quarter of your life. And then you go back to real life the next day. But it's important for you to take that time. And I try to make sure that I schedule vacations. You want to make sure that you have time to recharge and rejuvenate. And find time to spend time with your family and your friends. I don't spend enough time with my mom and my mother and some of those other people because of the way that my life has been. But what I've tried to do lately is really commit myself to spending time with my family and with my friends, those people that I really value, making sure that they know that they're valued, because, again, I just lost a friend recently to breast cancer, and she's 45 years old. So it helps you to put things into perspective, and it helps you to really stay focused.
Yeah, and you said something very important. Schedule time for yourself, because otherwise you will keep, postponing this time for yourself, and there's always something more important, and you are always second or last to everything else. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, and put it in your diary, and no compromise. It's there, and so when you have that appointment with yourself, keep it. Don't postpone it.
And mine, it's on your calendar. And just like I keep a doctor's appointment. It's my appointment. It's my time to do it. It's my time to do this for me. And I have to connect and go do it. And again, I'm saying it emphatically as though it's been a life process or a life practice, but it's not. I had to get to this place. But trust me, if I can save you some time and energy, get there now. It's important. Don't spend another day not spending time for you, because you need it. You need to take a mental break. And that's difficult, very, very difficult for me, because I'm a thinker. I'm always thinking, always thinking, always thinking. So I'm really now just trying to practice what it is that I'm sharing with you. But I'm realizing that it's so important, because if I don't do it, no one's going to do it for you. There's always, always, always going to be work to do. There's always, always, always going to be a time to do. There's always going to be something that could potentially be an emergency. Always. It never fails. So you have to make this a priority for you.
Kathy, you are a very passionate and multi-passionate entrepreneur. You do so many things. You write books, you speak at seminars and events, you have your individual and group coaching, and many, many other commitments. So what are you working at now? What is your next venture?
Well, I am currently working on another book, and actually I have 2 books in the works now, so I'm working on those. I mean, I'm also trying to expand. I'm always working with getting new clients. I just completed another certification, so I'm now really getting into helping other entrepreneurs start their businesses, and I've branched off into really targeting marketing efforts. So I've done a lot of work around marketing within the last few, probably about 6 to 8 months. A lot of work around understanding what that means in practice and how to do that. And I'm working on that a little bit now. So really, those are the big things that are out there. And trying to get my daughter out of college. That's huge. I want to get her out of college like as quickly as we can. So those are my major products right now. My major projects right now. Again, just working on those and working on a couple other things that are kind of bubbling up. But we'll see what happens with those before I blurt those out there. Sometimes I have to be careful what I say into the universe, because there are just as many people supporting you as they are trying to get you. So you have to be careful.
That's true. I don't know if you have any questions for Kathy. Yes, I have just received a question in my email. You know, my audience is used to send questions by email. Now I've rearranged and reorganized things, and they will need to get adjusted to the new style. They don't know that there are comments that I can post on my website already. So the question is this. So you need to have a very organized routine to be able to accomplish everything that you do.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can. I heard you say
you didn't hear the question. No, the question is, in order to be able to do all the things that you do, you have to have a very organized routine.
Yeah, I am for some reason losing you right at routine every time. So obviously, organized routine. What's the question?
The question is, do you have a very organized routine?
Actually, no. I mean, yes and no. Yes, I do. I have a very organized routine. I have a very systematic way of doing things. It's one of those things that can be annoying to people sometimes, but I like to prioritize, because again, I learned this from again, my husband says it all the time. Everything can't be an emergency. Everything can't be a crisis. So I have to make sure that I prioritize things, and then I try my best to be consistent in the way that I handle things, so that there are systems in place so that I don't have to every time come up with a new solution or a new way of doing things. So if you put systems into place and processes in place that you can follow in certain situations, then that helps a lot. The other thing is I have an amazing system with managing my email, managing the email traffic and things that comes in, and making sure that I keep my appointments and things of that nature. And it's very simple. It's a file system that I created, but actually I didn't create it. It's a file system that I got from someone else that essentially allows me to number files and date files. I date the files by month, and then I go back and I put the numbers in for by day of month. And then as things come in, I put them in the folders that go with the particular month and that go with that particular day, the day that I actually need to deal with it, not the day that it's due, or not the day that it's, the day that I received it. It goes in the day that I actually have to deal with it. my email. I only touch paper once. That's one of my other things. If I touch it, I need to do something with it, or it goes in the trash. So I normally will be able to get it off my email, put it into that file system, so that it's off of my mental. It's out of my mental space. I decide that when it's 2 weeks and I actually need to start working on it a week from now. On the 15th, I'll go to the folder that's marked the 15th. I'll pull that out. That's the day that I worry about it. But up until then, or that's the day that I use it, not worry about it. But that's the day that I deal with it, because before that, it's really not relevant. And if you have it in a pile on your desk, it's just something that you got to keep reliving and revisiting, and you still can't do anything with it until a later date. So I make sure that kind of helps me to declutter things, and it helps me to kind of stay organized and not be overwhelmed with all of the demands on your time, because everything's not due every day. So you have to figure out what system works for you to organize those things.
So the key word is having a system, and that's the secret. Finding out the best system for you.
Right. Use one calendar too. Try I know people that have multiple calendars. It drive you crazy because you have things that are all over the place. Try to use one calendar for everything. And if you need color coded to separate your professional life, so be it. Use color coding. Use other things like that will give you that'll trigger things in your mind. But definitely, if you have to try to bounce back and forth, you miss things, and you have to deal with the stress of missing something and then having to make it up and it's not worth it. But try to use one calendar. That's another tip another thing that I make sure that I try to do.
There's another question, Kathy. This is Christina, an Italian lady, and she's saying that she's starting her business and she's working on her business plan. What is the section of the business plan that, according to you, is particularly important? It's the most important when you are working at it. The first thing that you have to focus your attention to.
You want to make sure, again, that you know what you're doing and why, and who you're doing it for. That whole purpose of your business. What's the purpose, and how is it going to make you money? If you're talking about business from the financial standpoint, you want to know, yes, it's great to have all this fulfillment and all these other things, but realistically, you need to make money at the end of the day. That's the purpose of you actually having this business and coming out of some of your other situations. It's not for you to just become destitute. That's not the point. So we have to keep in mind that part. You need to look at what the potential funding sources are. You need to spend some time looking at what obstacles other people have encountered and how they were able to overcome. And that's often the piece that we miss. When you start planning for your business, we start thinking about, bunny rabbits and unicorns, because it's great and it's a great idea and everybody thinks that. But you really have to start looking at your funding sources. How are you going to be able to get this off the ground? And then you have to look at what's going to be their return on their investment and what's going to be your return on your investment of your time, your investment of your initial resources. And you have to be able to articulate what you do. It is so hard for people to articulate what they do. You ask people, they're like, well, I kind of do, I do this or I do. What do you do? You have to be able to articulate what that is. And that's probably one of the hardest things to kind of narrow down. What you do, what is it? What service do you provide? What product do you offer? What thing do you add? What do you add to the current situation? What product? What is it that you give people? What is that? What is your service? And if you can't identify what that is, and generally you should be able to do that in a couple words or in a sentence. It should be a very quick thing. I am a whatever that thing is. I'm a personal and professional advancement strategist. That is what I am. That is what I do. I take your personal life, your professional life, and I advance it. I help you to advance it. I bridge the gap between your destiny, your today, and your destiny. Those are the things that I do. So when I have that conversation, it's very easy for me to say what I am and what I do. And that has to be communicated again, and it should also be reflected in your branding as well.
Yeah, and also in a way that reflects you, who you are, and what is unique about you. Otherwise, people can feel that it's not as spontaneous what you say.
Exactly, and you certainly have to be able to say what it is that you do and have a unique spin. Because there are a lot of people that sell toilet paper. There are a lot of people that sell straws. I mean, there are a lot of people that do those things. What makes your toilet paper better than everybody else's? What makes your cupcakes better? What makes your novelty items, like your sister's things? What makes those better than anyone else's? What is it that makes you unique? What makes you stand out? And that has to come across in your product and in your message as well.
Yeah. Kathy, thank you very much for this interview, for having been with us, and for sharing your very rich and valuable experience with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I
Yeah, it's almost 10 o'clock for us, this part of the world. The day is over, and you still have a very busy day ahead. So
yes.
really, thank you very much for having given us this part of your day, some time with us. And I really hope to be able to have you again here at Simple Steps to Prosperity, and maybe we can find, a very specific topic that our audiences are struggling with, and help them
Absolutely.
with that.
Absolutely. Definitely. Just contact me. You know how to reach me.
Thank you again, Kathy. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, and get some rest.
Bye, bye-bye. Bye.